Welcome everyone to a meeting of the Boston Regional Economic Planning Organization. I'm David Moore and Secretary Jamie Tesler here. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation if you have one. Please do not mute and unmute yourself. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen window, bottom of the screen. A window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the raise hand button and toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you're on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact Regine Foley via the chat or at rfoley@cps.org or call her at 857-702-3704. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant, with exceptions, with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, please contact Regine Foley, MPO staff at rfoley@ctps.org or call her at 857-702-3704.
David, I apologize to interrupt here. We're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. I'm not sure if it's just your proximity to the microphone.
All right, let me see if you can hear me better now. Can you hear me better now?
Sounds much better.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm David Mueller. I represent Secretary Jamie Tesler here. Matt, please call the roll.
Mascot Chair.
Yes, I'm here.
Mascot Seat 2. MassDOT Highway Division. MBTA.
Josh Klingenstein, MBTA, representing General Manager Steve Poptek.
Thank you. Massachusetts Port Authority. Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Good morning. This is Eric Barassa with MAPC.
MBTA Advisory Board.
Good morning, Brian Kane, MBTA Advisory Board.
Regional Transportation Advisory Council.
Leonard Jenkins Advisory Council.
City of Boston, Boston Transportation Department.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, good morning. This is Matt Moran representing Mayor Janey.
Thank you. City of Boston, BPDA.
Good morning. This is Joe Blankenship representing Mayor Janey and the BPDA.
Thank you. At-large city, City of Everett.
Good morning. Jay Monty, representing Mayor DiMaria and the City of Everett.
At-large city, City of Newton.
Hi, this is David Kozis representing Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller and the City of Newton.
At-large town, Town of Arlington. At-large town, Town of Brookline.
Todd Crane representing Select Board Chair Heather Hamilton and the Town of Brookline.
Inner Core Committee, City of Somerville.
Good morning, Brad Rawson, City of Somerville, representing Mayor Joe Curtatone and the Inner Core Committee.
Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly. North Suburban Planning Council, City of Woburn.
Good morning. This is Tina Cassidy representing Woburn Mayor Scott Galvin and the North Suburban Planning Council.
Thank you. South Shore Coalition, Town of Rockland.
Jennifer Constable, Town of Rockland, representing the South Shore Coalition.
Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Medway. Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood, Neponset River Regional Chamber.
Good morning, Tom O'Rourke from the Town of Norwood, representing the Trick subregion.
And I believe MassDOT C2 has joined us. Is John Bouchard here?
John Bouchard present. Sorry, I was tardy.
No worries. Thank you. And our ex officio members, Federal Highway Administration.
Good morning, Ken Miller, Federal Highway.
And Federal Transit Administration. Okay, I believe that calls the roll.
Thank you, Rosie. First item on the agenda is the chair's report. We did some, just so everyone knows, MassDOT submitted 3 RAISE grants to the USDOT. RAISE, R-A-I-S-E, is the new acronym for what used to be Tiger and then was in, I think, Build, might have been Infra at some point, I'm not sure. Anyway, we submitted 3 grants, 2 of which are in this region for discretionary federal highway funding. The first would be, in no particular order, the creation of a center running bus lane on the Linway in Lynn. And the second one is the bicycle pedestrian connection between Somerville and Everett from the Assembly Square Orange Line to the Northern Strand Path. Any questions? Seeing and hearing none. Executive Director's report. Taken.
I'm sorry, did I see, Brad, I saw you manually raise your hand again. Is that how you're raising your hand so we make sure we catch you?
Someone raised their hand?
I think Brad Rawson did. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to applaud MassDOT for what I understand to be a tremendous amount of hard work to compete for these highly competitive grants. Our city has submitted multiple Tiger grants, build grants in the past, and we know the heavy lift that is placed on staff and partner agencies. And Mr. Chair, I believe that your agency also submitted a 3rd one in a different sub-region. So I just wanted to make sure members knew there was a rail trail facility, right, David?
No, the 3rd one we submitted, MassDOT submitted, was the safety and other improvements along the Knowledge Corridor, which is a north-south rail line that runs from Vermont to Springfield.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I just want to point out the consistency with long-range MassDOT, sub-regional and local plans with all 3 of these proposals. So I just think it's terrific and want to applaud MassDOT.
Thank you. Jay Monty.
Yeah, just seconding Brad's remarks, we and everyone would just like to thank MassDOT again for the commitment to the North Shore on these 2 grants, both the Linway and the bridge. The bridge in particular for us is something we've been working on for a long time. I know a lot of folks have been advocating for this for a long time, and it really does impact the entire North Shore and the North Shore Trail Network. So just to see, the focus on communities north of Boston and these 2 grant applications really means a lot. So just want to extend our thanks.
Thank you, Jay. And Matt Moran, you want to talk about City of Boston's RAISE grant?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Matt Brand from the Boston Transportation Department. I just want to note, in partnership with the MBTA, the City of Boston also submitted a RAISE grant application for the Blue Hill Ave corridor between Grove Hall and Mattapan. So, important corridor in terms of regional transportation, neighborhood transportation, and equity.
Thank you, Matt. Next on the agenda is Executive Director's report. Taken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few things to cover today. I have announced previously to the board that our own CTPS's Stephen Andrews has recently filled the position of the agency's first data strategist. And since perhaps not all of you have met him, I wanted to formally introduce him today and just ask him to say a few words so that you would recognize him. But first, as a preamble, he started as our data strategist last month. And Stephen has actually been with CTPS for nearly 12 years. So while he knows us, CTPS, the MPO, and our partners, the position is still brand new. So please keep that in mind. There will be some evolution of this role as he steps into it. Our intent right now and our understanding is that the work for this position is going to involve really the prioritization and championing of the data initiatives that we as CTPS engage in with our partners externally as well. So he would prioritize and champion that coordination and strategic direction of those data initiatives with a focus on advancing CTPS's mission, of course, and supporting the Boston Region MPO. And he would also be engaging with our staff internally and also some of our external partners to really identify the needs and opportunities that we have related to data strategy and analysis. And there are many of them. So he has some big tasks ahead of him, but if it's all right, Mr. Chair, I'd like to allow Stephen to say hello, to get his face on the screen. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Stephen.
Thank you. So again, hello everyone, I'm Stephen Andrews. Tegan took all of my good talking points here. I've been at CTPS for about 12 years working in the transit group. I've lived in Cambridge, and I currently live in Somerville. So I've seen Mr. Roston at all sorts of meetings, walking down my street, bucking up my bus stops. So I look forward to working with all of you as we kind of forge onward through the data needs of the region.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks. Sorry, Stephen, for stealing your talking points.
Thank
I'm good at that. Okay, thank you. So for some outreach and highlights about public commentary and public interaction, I wanted to say that last Friday on July 9th, we had the 5th Pilot Transit Working Group meeting. And there we featured a presentation about transit regionalization from Richard Farr, who's the Executive Director of Rapid Transit. That's Rabbit Transit and the Capital Area Transit in Central Pennsylvania. It was a really robust conversation, really exciting as always. And then MPO staff also presented on upcoming MPO activities and our progress on an interactive bus delay analysis tool for the MBTA. And then we also talked about the outcomes of the much smaller group chats we've been having about transit topics that were held throughout May. So these working group meetings continue to be really well attended. There were 48 non-staff attendees from a wide range of transit-related organizations at the last one. And if you would like to see the discussion, you can find it on the Boston Region MPO's YouTube channel. And then this week, great, yes, Rasheen put it in chat. Thank you, Rasheen. And then this week, we co-hosted an event with the APA Massachusetts Transportation Committee, where I presented on the history of MPOs, kind of telling that narrative of how MPOs came out of the highway revolts in the highway era. And I talked about a few of our trends for the future. And then I sat on a panel with our board member, Daniel Amstutz, who I believe is not here today, and as well as the Deputy Director of the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, CMRPC, and her name is Sajatha Krishnan. So it was also really well attended. There were more than 100 people, and we received a lot of good feedback on the topic and learning about the history of the MPO and where MPOs are going. And that you can also watch on the YouTube channel, which Roisin may have put in chat or may be about to put in the chat. We're also going to host a series of forums related with the APA Mass Transportation Committee. So to keep an eye out for upcoming topics, which are going to be trip generation, future of the curb, and access to central business districts. And then another highlight is that we also hosted the last ICC transportation meeting for the federal fiscal year 21 yesterday. And at that meeting, we heard from the MBTA's fare transformation team on their strategy for replacing the existing fare payment technology that's in place with a more simplified, seamless system that'll allow for more of the fare interactions to happen off of the vehicles. So it will also help improve service as well as improve the experience for customers. So that was a really great conversation. Municipalities provided a lot of input to the T, and then we also discussed feedback and plans for upcoming ICC meetings. ICC transportation meetings. And the next one will be held on October 13th in this year. So thank you for those of you who have been a part of the ICC, who have been participating in these meetings. And I hope you will come in October. And then my last one is a virtual UPWP open house, which we will be holding on Tuesday, the upcoming Tuesday, July 20th at 4 p.m. And that's a forum where we can hear people's questions and comments on the federal fiscal year 2022 draft UPWP. So the details and the Zoom registration link for that event are on the MPO calendar. So that's the outreach highlights for today. I will just say that we're going to ask you first to approve a non-MPO funded scope of work for the city of Woburn, and we have representatives for that here. And just as a reminder, we ask you to approve these scopes even though they are not funded by the MPO because it involves a significant amount of effort for staff. And we provide you with the assurance that we can still carry out the MPO work, and it also may be a scope of work of interest to you. Ben Dowling will talk more about it, but this scope is to support the next stage in how Woburn is exploring ways to alleviate congestion at the I-93, I-95 interchange area in Woburn. And that's also a topic that the MPO has participated in studying. And then our most important topic for today is your vote. We hope to release the federal fiscal year 22 UPWP for a 30-day public comment period. And then finally, we'll present on the new online application that we have created to display information on all the major multimodal transportation infrastructure milestones within the Boston region from 1800 to today. It's a really fun and really informative tool, so I hope you'll enjoy the presentation, but definitely please check it out. And then touching on August, we will have 2 meetings in August, as usual, one on the 5th and 19th. And the topics will include a federal fiscal year 21 amendment to the UPWP, which is something we do annually, and we aim to do a little more frequently with you so that we can better align the budgets that we set, months and months before the federal fiscal year starts, and better align them with the actual spending. We will also talk to you in August about a CBD phase 2 status report. We will talk about the MPO election survey results. We will provide some updates on the MPO public outreach plan. And we will also engage with you in a discussion about really to confirm how you want to hold your meetings while the exemptions for the open meeting law requirements are extended to April 1st. And as I have mentioned, unless you determine otherwise, our practice will be to continue to hold them virtually, but we just would like you to confirm your intent on that. And then, so because of all of that, please do keep an eye out for a UPWP committee meeting. We'll have to have one prior to the amendment. And then we'll also be asking you to approve the 2022 UPWP on August 19th, which will be after the comment period ends if you vote to release it today. So thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot coming up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tegan. Any questions for Tegan at this time? Brian Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Tegan and not welcome, but congratulations to Stephen Andrews. Stephen and I worked very closely together once in a past life on several MBTA things, and it was a pleasure to work with him then. And I look forward to continuing to work with him going forward. And I think, congrats to Tegan and Gina and the whole team for making an inspired choice and promoting from within. I think that's always great to see. And just wanted to say thank you and welcome aboard, Stephen, again.
Thanks, Brian. Any other comments or questions for Tegan? Brad Ross, and I think it's because Stephen lives in Somerville. Go ahead, Brad. Oh, I guess Brad, did we lose Brad?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my comment was going to just be about the value of the Regional Intercore Committee Forum that staff have set up. And I hope that other sub-regions are taking advantage of the immense talent on the CTPS staff, partnership with DOT, MBTA, and MAPC staff. We've just found this rhythm of getting to know one another and exploring technical topics really valuable this year. So thanks again to everybody who's working so hard to support us.
Excellent. Thank you, Brad. Any other comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is public comments. Does anyone from the public want to make a comment at this time? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing and hearing none, if you have a comment during the meeting, raise your hand and we will call on you. Committee chairs report. Are there any? Ben Muller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Ben Muller, MassDOT OTP and chair of the Boston MPO UPWP Committee. The UPWP Committee did meet this morning and voted to recommend the full MPO board release the draft 2022 UPWP to public comment today. There was confirmation at that meeting that there will be time after the comment period to incorporate any public feedback we receive should the MPO board release the draft today. So I'd recommend anyone who has any comments or thoughts about the work that CTPS does on behalf of the Boston MPO to read through, attend open house, and submit formal comment to MPO staff. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions for Ben? Seeing none, are there any other committee chairs reports at this time? Next item on our agenda is the Regional Transportation Advisory Council report. Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had our meeting yesterday, and we had Emily Torres-Cullinane from MAPC come to talk with us about Metro Common 2050, and also again talked to us about how the LRTP is going to how the LRTP work with that. And it was all about, well, we focus a lot on implementation, and that was a very robust conversation, very helpful conversation. And I knew the meeting was going to be good, but it was even better than I thought it was going to be from that respect. So we have, it'll be on our YouTube channel. And one other thing I found out about is that MAPC has a YouTube channel, and I hear that there is a video of Eric Barassa running on the beach, but I'm not sure. And the last thing I'll say regarding the meeting is that Jen Rowe, representing Boston, I think BTD, has joined our TAC meetings, and it's always a pleasure to have Jen work with Jen. She was great as a member of CTPS, and as I said in the meeting, it's always a good feeling when people who work for CTPS then become members of RTAC, as is the case with Andy Reeker. They bring a lot to the table, and it kind of validates our value as an advisory council, and hopefully we'll give you even better advice. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions for Lynn? Eric Barassa.
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question for Len, but I did want to give a committee chair update when this is done that I missed. I apologize.
No worries. I thought you were going to confirm whether you're running on the beach or not, but go ahead, Eric.
I don't know what he's talking about. I need to look that up.
Go ahead, Eric. It's your turn.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update about the ad hoc committee MPO cost increase subcommittee. And so we had a meeting last week, very good meeting. We really focused, and I have to say, I really thank the staff for preparing some really great materials and really giving some good insight into the process. And we really started to, the committee has really started to focus in on some of the issues around when costs go up the most between projects that are approved at PRC and as they really get to 25% design. And so I think we're going to have a conversation about, do we want to adopt some type of a policy that we will only program projects that are kind of closer to that 25% design level? So that's one issue we're going to start to grapple with. A second one is, are there more sort of touchstones or more things that we can bake into our process so that we're getting project proponents before the MPO kind of earlier, and also having staff touch base with projects so that we're on top of projects, particularly ones that are potentially more vulnerable for cost increase. And the third one is about incorporating some type of cost or cost effectiveness or some type of evaluation process so that when projects do go up in cost, we can have some way of evaluating them and determining whether we want to continue to commit to them or not, or what action we want to take. So those are some of the three areas that we're starting to hone in on. I really encourage folks to come, especially the committee members who might have missed the last one, come to the August 19th meeting where we're really looking to get more input on those concepts and start to refine a recommendation that we bring to the MPO in like September. Any questions?
Thanks, Eric. Any questions for Eric? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of June 3rd. Can I get a motion in a second? And please state your name for record when making a motion. Brian Kane.
Move to accept the minutes as presented.
Eric Barassa.
I second that motion.
Motion having been made and seconded. Any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Seeing none, Regine, please call the roll.
MassDOT Chair,
Yes.
MassDOT C2,
John Bouchard, yes.
MBTA,
MBTA, yes.
MAPC,
Eric Barassa, yes.
MBTA Advisory Board,
Brian Kane gave a thumbs up. Because
Yes.
Advisory Council,
Leonard Diggins, yes.
City of Boston BTD, City of Boston BPDA.
Sorry, City of Boston BTD, yes. This is Matt.
Sorry about the dog.
And then BPDA, Joe Blankenship, yes.
Thank you. At-large city, City of Everett.
Jay Monte, yes.
Ha!
Rosita, we could let your dog just vote for everybody.
Sorry. At-large city, City of Newton.
David Kozis, yes.
At-large town, Town of Arlington. Oh, wait, Daniel's not here. At-large town, Town of Brookline.
Todd Corain, yes.
Intercourt Committee, City of Somerville.
Brad Rawson, City of Somerville Intercourt, yes.
Metro West, City of Framingham.
Thatcher Keys votes yes.
Thank you. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Darlene Wynn votes yes.
Thank you. North Suburban, City of Woburn.
Tina Cassidy abstains.
South Shore, Town of Rockland.
Yes.
Thank you. And Three Rivers Interlocal, Town of Norwood, Neponset River Regional Chamber.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you, Rosie. Next item is the action item for the FY22 UPWP. Sandy Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, good morning. I am here to introduce the draft Federal Fiscal Year 2022 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. I will be asking the MPO today to vote to release this document for a 30-day public comment period. For those listening at home, the UPWP is the document that lays out or programs how the MPO will spend the federal funds it receives for transportation planning each year. For this upcoming federal fiscal year, the UPWP programs about $5.5 million in federal funding, around $4.6 million for the Central Transportation Planning Staff, and another $1 million for MAPC. In addition, the UPWP includes work that CTPS executes on contract to other state agencies and to other entities, a total of about $1.6 million. So the headline number program for the entire document is about $7.3 million. So just a word on process. The MPO's UPWP committee meets regularly to guide the development of this document. As you heard from Ben Mueller just now, this morning the committee voted to send the draft document to the MPO for your vote to release for public comment. If you vote to release the UPWP for public review, the 30-day public comment period will begin today, July 15th, and run through August 13th. The MPO will then be asked to vote to endorse the final UPWP on August 19th. Overall, this year's UPWP follows the same organizational pattern as last year's. There are a couple of major things that I want to highlight that are different and new. The first is that you will find a new task in the certification requirements section, that is chapter 3 of the document, called MPO Resiliency Program. This limited initial budget is intended to become a permanent program, allowing MPO staff to coordinate with partner agencies on resiliency topics, do some research, and eventually build an MPO resiliency practice should the MPO choose that as a priority. You'll find a text description of this program on page 3-50 of the draft document. That's page 104 of the PDF that Roisin has just put in the chat. Secondly, Appendix A to the UPWP document looks a little bit different this year. This appendix documents transportation-related studies that are being conducted around the Boston region in FFY 2022, but are not funded by the MPO. This year's version of the appendix, as we've discussed with the UPWP committee, covers only the essential elements required in this appendix by our federal partners, that is, federally funded studies and those of regional significance. Time, resources, and submissions from our municipal partners allowing, Staff hope to, at some point, build an interactive online interface that will document all transportation-related studies in the MPO region. For the most part, funding handled through the UPWP process goes to maintain the core MPO activities that you're all familiar with, such as producing documents like the Long-Range Transportation Plan and the TIP, enhancing the regional travel demand model, technical assistance to municipalities, and other support tasks. But each year, the MPO sets aside a certain amount of money for the UPWP's headline item, the list of what we call discrete studies. You have the list in the posted materials for this meeting. It's in Chapter 4, but I just want to talk through each of these a little because we're excited about them. You can find full text descriptions for these studies on pages 4-11 or through 4-25, or PDF pages 117 through 131. Trip generation follow-up will continue the work carried out over the last 2 years to examine how people travel to and from various types of buildings and developments. The FFY 2022 version will likely focus on parking policy, which you heard Eric Barassa mention earlier, and will be conducted in close coordination with MAPC staff. Travel demand management follow-up aims to carry forward the momentum we've built by hosting 2 forums on the topic of TDM during FFY 2021, with the second one upcoming in September. Staff will continue to foster coordination on the topic of TDM with MAPC and with MPO member municipalities. One of the key tasks will be determining the potential need for a permanent structure for TDM coordination in the Boston region. We have 3 what we call recurring corridor and intersection studies that the Traffic Analysis and Design Group at CTPS conducts every year or every other year. You frequently see the results of these studies here at the MPO. Future of the Curb, Phase 3, follows up on a study currently underway, which is itself a continuation of work funded through the FFY 2019 UPWP. This year's work will focus on identifying specific curb management strategies, collecting data on usage, and establishing a comparative method. Addressing equity and access in the Blue Hills is something that many of us are very excited about. The basic concept was proposed by a coalition of nonprofit groups active in the Blue Hills and in the Dorchester-Mattapan area. It proceeds from a recognition that many people in the Boston region, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds and/or who may not have cars, cannot easily access the natural resources of the Blue Hills Reservation despite geographic proximity. Staff will engage deeply with stakeholders on the ground in those areas and with partner government entities, identify specific needs, and work on a service plan for upgrading transit access to the Blue Hills. Identifying transportation inequities in the Boston region is a study that takes a long-term approach to measuring and defining equity for the MPO. While the equity of policies applied by the MPO and other transportation agencies often take the status quo as a given and attempt to prevent making inequities worse through future investments, this study will take a historical perspective and attempt to identify existing inequities that have been caused by past decisions and identify opportunities for the MPO to reduce the divergent outcomes between population groups. This study will have both qualitative and quantitative elements. Finally, staff-generated research and technical assistance is a budget line included in the UPWP every year that allows staff to take on small projects. You may have noticed that there are fewer of these discrete studies than originally estimated when staff presented a proposal to the UPWP committee on May 6th, and fewer than has been common over the past several years. There are a few reasons for this and for why we hope this is a unique case for this year. These have been discussed at the UPWP committee, but I'm also going to briefly recap them now. First, our early discussions for the amount of funds available for discrete studies are based on historical information. These assumptions are what we share with you while the budgets, both the CTPS state fiscal year operating as well as the federal fiscal year UPWP budget, are being developed. This always results in a revision to the final funds we show to be available for discrete studies in the UPWP. Few items worth mentioning this year that contribute to the lower discrete study budget are, first, 3C funding was decreased by $188,000 from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22. CTPS overhead is higher than previous years to better meet the needs of the agency. This includes technology investments for a hybrid in-person and telework environment. We have increased some ongoing budget line items, both discrete and not, to lay the groundwork for engaging in more impactful and relevant discrete studies in the future. For example, the regional model enhancement line item is larger because we're building new tools that better equip us to explore uncertainty in our scenario planning and the rest of our work for the region. We know discrete studies are a priority to the board, but with level or slightly decreased 3C funding and the evolving needs of the agency, we are constrained at this point in time. We expect that we'll be able to dedicate more towards discrete studies in future years. All right. As a reminder, again on process, the public is invited to comment on the content of the UPWP during the 30-day public comment period, and particularly on the discrete studies. There will be a Zoom-based open house during the comment period. That will be next Tuesday, as has already been mentioned, and keep your eyes on email for more details. I am happy to take any questions at this time. If and once all questions have been addressed, I request that the MPO vote to release the FFY 2022 UPWP for a 30-day public comment period with the anticipation of final endorsement of the document in August.
Thank you, Sandy. Questions from the members? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to release this for a 30-day public review process? Please state your name for the record. Eric Barassa.
This is Eric Barassa, and I make a motion to release the UPWP for public comment.
Tina Cassidy.
Yes, and I'd be happy to second that motion.
Thank you. Motion having been made and seconded. Regine, please call the roll.
MassDOT Chair,
Yes.
MassDOT C2,
John Bouchard, yes.
MBTA,
Josh Klingenstein, MBTA, yes.
MAPC,
Eric Barassa, yes.
MBTA Advisory Board,
Brian Can will abstain.
Regional Transportation Advisory Council,
Leonard Dickens, yes.
City of Boston BTD,
Excuse me, Matt Moran, Boston Transportation Department, yes.
thank you. City of Boston BPDA,
Joe Blankenship, yes.
At-large City, City of Everett,
Jay Monty, yes.
At-large City, City of Newton,
David Kozis, yes.
At-large Town, Town of Brookline,
Todd Corain, yes.
Intercore Committee, City of Somerville,
Brad Rawson, yes.
Metro West, City of Framingham,
Thatcher Keezer votes yes.
North Shore, City of Beverly,
Darlene Nguyen votes yes.
North Suburban, City of Woburn,
Yes, Woburn votes yes.
South Shore, Town of Rockland,
Jen Constable, yes.
and Trick, Town of Norwood, and RRC.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you, Regine. Next item on the agenda is an action item on the Cedar Street ramp to Interstate 93 study. Ben Dowling.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Ben Dowling, and I work in the Model Applications Group in CTPS. This scope is for a study to examine the addition of a ramp onto Interstate 93 southbound from Cedar Street in Woburn. The study of the I-93 southbound ramp is being done in support of one of the MPO municipalities, the City of Woburn, and to support a state and federal planning and design process. The ramp in question was the subject of a recent functional design report, and one of the next steps in the process is to develop an interchange modification report. To support this next step, Woburn, through its consultant, has asked CTPS to use its travel demand forecasting model to analyze the interchange of Interstate 93 and Interstate 95 in Woburn, as well as a local parallel corridor under existing, future no build and future build conditions. What you see on the slide in front of you is a map of the study area. And that map is also presented in figure 1 in the work plan. CTPS will provide the project team with forecasted approach volumes for the 3 scenarios. The 2040 no build scenario will be based on the current LRTP build network. The future build scenario will be the same as the no build scenario, except that it will include the proposed ramp And will also include an auxiliary lane on 93, which was one of the recommended alternatives from the CTPS low-cost improvements to express highway bottleneck locations study, which was done by CTPS in 2015. That proposed auxiliary lane is located on I-93 southbound, south of I-95, and would extend to the exit ramp to Montvale Avenue. The project will take approximately 8 person weeks to complete and is estimated to cost $39,996. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
Thank you, Ben. Questions for Ben? Wait, Steve Olenoff.
Yeah, so usually these are pretty straightforward, but I had a few problems with this. If you look at it right away, it says, well, project number to be determined. That's not unusual, but then it says client to be determined. I've never seen that before. It appears the client would be the city of Woburn, but is it or isn't it? And then furthermore, you mentioned the ramp on the table there. You don't show that ramp anywhere. I had to kind of like track it down and go to Google Earth to figure out exactly where this ramp would be. So is the client going to be the town of Woburn, and of course the funding source also to be determined? Are they the ones paying for it, or is it the MPO, MassDOT?
Yeah, thanks for those questions. Those two critical details are yet to be worked out. I wish I had a better answer for you, but we were rushing to get this onto the agenda today, and we don't have a straightforward answer to that. Yeah,
I think Tegan's going to help here. Maybe Tegan.
It doesn't sound, it sounds more uncertain than it is. The idea here is we're working out the exact mechanism, and I think Tina might have also raised her hand, but the point is that we're working with the consultant on behalf of the city, and there's just they haven't quite finalized the specific mechanism by which they want to pass the funds through. But I will since I saw Tina raise her hand, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I will also defer to her.
Sure, Tina.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I apologize for not being able to give any more than what Tegan just said. That was how I was going to respond. I can say, Steve, just to be clear, that the work that would be done under this particular scope would be paid for by actually a couple of property owners. One in particular in the area is very interested in pursuing this project. So the funding will not be from CTPS, it will be private.
So hold on, Steve. We got 2 other people raising their hand who might have some answer to this question, or possibly the second question. Brian Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to everybody, the MPO. I've joined this meeting to speak in support of this project. I'll firstly answer one of the questions, which is to share that the Cummings organization has provided a grant to City of Woburn to fund this scope of work, and so this work would be privately funded. And that fund also includes an amount to move this proposal forward to an interchange justification report. But the first step in the process would be to analyze the build and no build results of this proposal. What I'd like to share with everyone on the board is just a quick comment in support of this proposal. The I-93, I-95 interchange is the most heavily trafficked interchange in the state. In the past, there was a proposal to create a grand considerable interchange infrastructure to address that. back in 2007, but that has not moved forward. We see this proposal as a measure to provide an alleviation at a low cost that's readily implementable. Essentially what it comprises is a new ramp at the end of Cedar Street in Woburn that would take traffic onto 93 South directly and reduce a lot of trips going onto the weave at the interchange unnecessarily. As part of the proposal, it also would include converting the breakdown lane on 93 South to an additional travel lane, thereby increasing mainline capacity. And it becomes an exit-only lane at Montville Avenue, which would significantly reduce a large number of accidents that occur there because of a short deceleration lane. We're obviously in support of this project because we see the benefit, but we've also started to share this with our neighbors in other towns and other businesses. And we believe that this has a regional benefit to our neighbors and other businesses by reducing congestion, reducing emissions. And so we are very strongly in favor of this next step, which is to analyze the proposal and determine its benefit over a no-build condition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Steve, did that answer? Did you get your answer before I call on Lynn? Hearing none. Lynn? Oh, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, I just wanted to have it clear mostly that this is not MV. I mean, it says to be determined, but I think, just non-MPO funds would have been better to put, so it would be clear where the money is not coming from, and rather than the details of where it actually is coming from.
Thanks, Steve. Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm excited about this, and if I may, can I just ask a series of just quick yes/no questions rather than one long question?
Okay.
Sure. So I'm assuming we will get to see the tech memorandum?
Yes.
Great. Is there any intention to present to the board that memorandum?
That was not envisioned under the scope, but that we can certainly do that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So if that's not the intent, then I'll keep an eye on things, because I very much like to have a conversation with you and or Marty or anyone who will talk with me about this, because I think this is a fascinating study that will have applicability to what we do, especially with respect to the LRTP. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Other questions from MPO members? Seeing none. Rich Benevento?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add a little bit to what's already been discussed, we're the consultant of record on this, working with the city of Woburn and actually with MassDOT and Federal Highway. A few months ago, there was a meeting with MassDOT, Federal Highway, just sort of to get some initial discussion going on this. Functional design report was prepared. Rod Emery from our office is sort of leading the charge on this. Many of you know Rod. So this is just sort of taking a lot of those other reports and studies that have been done. Functional design report was done. Obviously, the next step, as Ben mentioned, is really to do this interchange justification report, which would be required. When that is done, certainly it can be in a format to present to the MPO to provide additional information. Obviously, there's a ways to go here. We haven't even talked about inclusion on the tip and things like that yet. We really need to do this groundwork first. So that's what's going on with it. We can provide that information as the study and the report are developed and get those off to Ben. And I actually want to thank CTPS for their involvement with this. I know Rod and Ben have been working closely in developing this scope of work. With that modeling capability, this will be a huge benefit to get this study done and get the report done. So just wanted to offer that. And we're obviously available at any time to provide additional information to the MPO.
Thank you, Rich. Other questions from the members? Other comments? Seeing none, can I get a motion in a second to approve this as presented? Oh wait, Lynn Diggins? Oh wait, Lynn, is it you making the motion?
I was just going to make the motion, Mr. Chair.
When you're ready, Lynn.
I make the motion to approve the study.
Thank you. Is there a second? Tina Cassidy.
Yes, it'd be a pleasure to second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Regine, please call the roll.
MassDOT Chair,
Yes.
MassDOT Seat 2, MBTA,
MBTA, yes.
MAPC,
Eric Barassa, yes.
MBTA Advisory Board,
Advisory board votes yes.
Regional Transportation Advisory Council,
Yes, I love the sound effects from these remote sessions. Thanks.
City of Boston, Boston Transportation Department,
BTD votes yes.
City of Boston BPDA,
Joe Blankenship, yes.
At-large City of Everett,
Jay Monty, yes.
At-large City of Newton,
David Kozis, yes.
At-large Town of Brookline,
Todd Corain, yes.
Inner Core City of Somerville,
Brad Wilson, yes.
Metro West City of Framingham,
Patrick Keyser votes yes.
North Shore City of Beverly,
Darlene Wynn votes yes.
North Suburban City of Woburn,
Tina Cassidy votes yes.
South Shore Town of Rockland,
Jen Constable, yes.
and Trick Town of Norwood and RRC.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. Obviously, no work will begin until the money's in hand, but congratulations. Next item, mapping major infrastructure milestones. I believe this is Ken Dumas.
Thank you all. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Yes, my name is Ken Dumas. I'm a senior graphic artist cartographer here at CTPS, and I'm sure a lot of you know me. I always wear the same purple shirt and a T-tie when I come to these meetings, and someone was concerned I only own one tie. Don't worry, I own more than one. I own two. Anyways, I'm here today to unveil a new online application that we have here at CTPS, the mapping of major infrastructure milestones. Some of you might remember I came to the, this was a UPWP project that I would think I was here back in December when I got it approved. The work is all done. Now, before I show this app, I first want to give a shout out to three very important people that made this app necessary. The first is Scott Peterson. Even though he's now a former CTPS employee, this was his brainchild. It was very, very instrumental in getting the funding for this project so that we can move forward. The second is my coworker, Benjamin Krepp. He's the IT behind the scenes guy who did an amazing job. He worked magic as far as I'm concerned. He took a very simple map and a bunch of Excel spreadsheets, and I don't know how he did it, but he made this really cool animation. And thirdly, I also want to give a shout out to Tom Humphrey, who of another former CTPS employee who retired, I think, about 6 months before the pandemic. And we used his encyclopedia knowledge to get all of the dates right and the information as accurate as possible. So I'm going to assume I will be allowed to share my screen here. So let me try and do that. Let me, here it is. Okay. The first thing I want to do is I want to show you what was the inspiration for this project. And it was another item that CTPS has produced starting 20 years ago. It's a transportation timeline. You can see here, it's a very large poster. It's about 3 feet square. And what it does is on the left, I'm going to zoom in here. On the left, it has a map of pretty much all of Eastern Massachusetts with lots of infrastructure being shown. Bike paths, commuter rail, transit, highway lines, and so on. Lots of labels, few dates, downtown inset map for Boston. But on the right side is this vertical list of dates that go from 1800 to the current date. And to the left of the dates are all of the rail and transit milestones. Black is when something opened and red is when it was closed or shut down. And to the right of the vertical list are the highway, bicycle, pedestrian, and aviation milestones. And there are a few exceptions. So for example, if anything is colored blue, it means it reopened. And if it's colored green, it's legislative. Now, as you can see by me scrolling around on the page with this giant poster, this isn't the best way to see this information in an online environment. And this is something that often happens in the world of graphic design. You make something that worked perfect in one medium, but it's not ideal in another. So that was the challenge here, was to take something, even though it seemed like it's a bit of a redundancy and it's extra time, money, and effort, the challenge is to take something that will work in one medium and bring it into another. So I'm going to unshare and then share again. And I think it's this one. Nope, sorry, I just got to find the right window. I'm sorry, I do this all the time. I don't know. Oh, maybe it's this. No. All right. I will find it. Bear with me. I don't know why I can't. There we go. Can everybody see? Can everybody see this? There's a map on the left.
No, can we still see your sign into Cortana?
Okay, let me try again.
There you go.
Okay.
Now we
should
got
be
it.
able to see it now, right?
Yep, got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So now we have a map on the left, and it's this time we just focused on a map of the MPO. One of the issues that came up was that since this is an online environment and you cannot control the size of somebody's screen, it can be very large from a television, 70-inch television down to a cell phone. We had to draw a line somewhere. So we tried to focus on like a 13-inch laptop screen, kind of your smallest standard screen. So the map is just of the MPO because having all of Eastern Mass would be too hard to show on something this small. And we have a slider control in the middle, and we have a text portion over here on the right. And as you can see, if you just simply click on the slider control and go down forward in time, as you can see, it animates the map on the left with all the text information going by on the right. And you can basically go backwards in time by going back up. And this is just a fun little neat tool that you can use to see what happened in what year. You can also use your arrow keys to go year by year, one kind of frame at a time. And you can see that there's what's happening over here on the left and all of the text on the right of what happened that year. Or if you want, you can leave the slider anywhere and just hit the play button, and it will go forward in time at a predetermined speed, animating the map on the left with the text going by on the right. Now, we don't expect anybody to be able to read this text at this speed, but you never know, something might catch your eye. And if it does, you just simply hit the pause button and you can stop on that particular page, or you can simply go back to doing it either frame by frame or using the slider bar. Now I'm going to go to the year 1919 here. Bear with me. Okay, so now we have an interesting challenge because now this is an interactive environment. It isn't a static piece of paper. So the first thing we did is we took the stuff from the timeline, which you can see over here, a good example. This is the opened, which is in black, the closed, which is red, and the legislative. These three things were items that were taken from the timeline. Very easy to extract and import into this particular online application. But this is, after all, a website. We can give more interactivity. So the idea was to look at these things going on, and there may not be a website devoted to that particular milestone, but there probably is to that particular piece of infrastructure. And so what we said was, well, the orange line between Sullivan and Everett opened, so why don't we add links to websites that will highlight that particular piece of infrastructure? And the challenge and the key was to find websites that basically don't have ads. They're sites that basically are devoted to that particular thing. Or you can even see that this was also the year that the Massachusetts Department of Public Works became a reality. That no longer exists, but we at least extended you to the part of the mass.gov website to what it is at least called present day, which we know as the Mass DOT. But one of the other great things that we could do is we could highlight other things that might have happened that year in history that may not be specifically milestone or transportation related, but kind of were. And this is a good example right here. This was also the year of the Great Molasses Disaster. And for anyone who has never heard of this, it's a really fascinating story about how a giant vat of molasses in the North End exploded and took out a section of the North End. But the main thing is it destroyed parts of the old elevated Atlantic Avenue Railway, which you can see pictured on the left-hand side of the screen. So in this case, we felt it was appropriate to add this particular link to the site. And then we also wanted to do was find ways to keep people on the website. Now that we've got them here, we kind of hooked them. They think this thing is kind of fun. Let's find ways to keep them here. So for instance, if we go to 1973, this is the debut of, here it is, sorry, of the Boston MPO. So on this page, for example, we have all the links to all of the major documents that are basically on the MPO website. And don't worry, this little random character that looks like a question mark has been dealt with. We just haven't uploaded the very, very latest version that will be taken care of. And this allows you to go to other parts of the MPO website. And that way it keeps people on the website and hopefully they will explore more. Now, one of the interesting things that came out of this is that when you have all this information on a piece of paper, one of the things you'll notice are trends. So you can see on the timeline that the 1800s is the age of rail. And the 1900s is the age of the highway. And what you also see are the big gaps when nothing happened. And the problem with an online application where you can show things 1 year at a time is there's going to be years when nothing happened. And so if we go back to 1800, there were no milestones yet. Well, we couldn't have the space on the right be left blank. People might think the app was broken or we were missing something, or what's this empty space for? So one of the challenges of this, and I'm taking a little more time than we wanted, was to do the research to find historical facts that seem to be related to as much as transportation or big events in history as possible that we could put in this space. We had to expand the search to the entire world, because if we just limited it to either Massachusetts or the United States, some years there would have been nothing. And then to give everybody the complete package, just to cover it, you see this little button here that says download poster. If you click on that, that actually downloads the PDF of the transportation timeline that I first showed you, which then the user can choose to do with and use any way that they want. So I was going to leave this up and ask if there were any questions.
Are there any questions from the members? Lynn Diggins.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. First, Ken, this is great. And I have to admit, when I saw this study proposal, I saw the value in it, but I wasn't excited about it. I really like what I see here. And I know when I present this or tell some members on the Rider Works Committee about it, they're going to love it too, because they are even more geeky than I am. But two questions. One is, how do you keep things fresh? Because as we know, links go away. And second is, how will you update it? Thanks.
That's a good question. I don't think we have discussions about that yet, but that is something we have to consider, because eventually there's going to be another year. It will be 2022, and there may be milestones there. So my expectation is that we will continue to add to it. And yes, it would be good to do a look at the links from time to time to keep them fresh. But that's for a further discussion.
Brad Rawson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Ken and team. Tremendous product, and I think most folks in the room today got into public service because we believe in the important historical work that we inherited, with all of its deficiencies, with all of its exclusions and systematic biases, and we want to bend the arc of history in a more just, sustainable, and viable way going forward. I think as we think about how this tool will mature in the years to come, I'd encourage board members, and especially our partners at MAPC, to think about the land use and social policy implications. So Ken, you mentioned some of those years where we didn't have major infrastructure milestones. And I wonder if we can collectively acknowledge some of the land use pattern trends. So for example, we did a version of this in Somerville about 10 years ago. I was a cartographer and I got the opportunity to learn about literally subdivision patterns in business district development following the rail lines, following the Lowell branch, the New Hampshire branch, the Fitchburg branch, et cetera. When you extrapolate that out at the regional scale, I think we could all learn important lessons that we can apply in our collective work to make this region work better, to eliminate carbon emissions, to deal with systemic racism and exclusion and disparate public health impacts across the region, make sure we support our gateway cities and our small suburban town centers. So I definitely just want to highlight and lift up the importance of the land use lens as we think about how to leverage this tool going forward. But again, bravo, thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Other comments or questions from the members? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Ken. It was very interesting.
I think we have a comment from Matt Moran.
Oh, we do. Thank you. Matt Moran.
Hey, thanks very much for this. I really appreciate this map. It's fascinating. Quick question, and I apologize if I missed this, but if you were to try to find this or navigate to it from the MPO website, is there a good way to sort of tell people how to get there, or a link you could drop in for us?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be added to the part of the page with all of the other online applications. There's a particular page on the MPO website where it will go at some point. It's not there yet, but it will be soon.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Ken. Very good work.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda are member items. Are there any? Brian Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce the MBTA Advisory Board's newest staff member. Miss Amira Patterson has just has just turned on her video. You can find her somewhere in there. She's smiling and waving. I wanted to welcome Amira to the ranks. Amira has been with the advisory board for many years on a part-time basis, starting in high school. Worked here her entire college career and has been doing some part-time work. And last week she joined us full-time. She is our first transportation planner and is going to learn the hard way doing the work. She will be joining lots of MPO committees eventually. And I am very excited to welcome her officially to the team and to this body. And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, if she would like to say a few words, if that's all right.
Of course, Amira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Brian. Wow, I'm honored to have that introduction. I'm honored to be a part of the team officially with the MBTA. Like Brian said, I've been with the MBTA on a part-time basis since 2013. So it's been a long time coming, but I'm super excited to learn about transit, the inner workings of everything, being a Boston resident, born and raised. So I look forward to the projects. I look forward to hopefully meeting you all in person eventually. Thank you.
Us too. Thank you so much. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Is that it for
Thank you,
you,
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other member items? Seeing and hearing none, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn? And please state your name for the record. Brian Kane.
Brian Kane happily moves to adjourn.
Lynn Diggins.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Bye, guys.